From the imagination comes the story of a man with the mind of a child and a doctor with a vision of the future. Now, Job Smith is about to enter the world of virtual reality, a world where the normal course of events can suddenly turn inside out.
You realize, Dr. Angelo, that my intelligence has surpassed yours.
The imaginary becomes real, and reality
We have no idea what he's gonna do.
is all in your mind.
Hi there guys, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel called Blast and the Past, and this time around I have a review of the film The Lawnmower Man from 1992 starring Pierce Brosnan and Jeff Fahey.
The Lawnmower Man.
We could say that the title itself is based on one of Stephen King's books of the same name. It's actually a short story. However, this film notoriously has almost nothing to do with the original one, with the material. So this is some piece of trivia at the beginning, from the get-go, regarding The Lawnmower Man. Anyhow, so let's jump right into it, and let's talk about the plot, the film itself, the DVD release, and all the things related to it. Buckle up and let's get ready for the ride.
His mind is like a clean, hungry sponge.
I think that we could make an argument that The Lawnmower Man was released at the time when the computers, the technology, the internet, it was the fad. It was still a bit like fledgling at that time. Nonetheless, it was predicted to be the future. And actually, people who predicted that, they were not very far from the truth. Because have a look at the modern times, the modern era. The era of computers, of the internet, of tablets, of smartphones. When we even work remotely, we don't have to go to the office. So they were very, very right about their predictions regarding the future, the world of the future. At least in this regard, in terms of the digital world, how everything is connected.
No, Joe, just relax.
It's going to be like being up there with the stars, Joe. They're going to another planet.
In a nutshell, the plot is about a scientist played by Pierce Brosnan before his James Bond era, his James Bond fame, and he's an expert, a specialist on the topic of virtual reality and the brain itself, and he conducts experiments on the capabilities of the brain by using special drugs and virtual technology. Both of them combined together, those tools, in order to increase the possibilities of the human brain, the still uncharted territory, allegedly. After his project is shut down, he decides to continue the experiments, however on a human subject this time, unlike the apes before. So it happens that in the vicinity, in the neighborhood, there is a simple gardener who basically mows the lawns all the time. This is his main occupation. He's very simple-minded, albeit slowed down in terms of his mental capabilities, and he seems like the perfect subject for this experiment to increase the power of his brain. What happens next? Well, as you can clearly imagine, probably the experiment goes terribly wrong at some point. And a simple gardener, who is in terms of his intelligence way below the doctor, the scientist, outsmarts and outdoes the master, and also he becomes the one who is in charge of the world of virtual reality, as can be seen here. What happens next?
This universe is mine. I am God here.
How the plot develops later on, whether he becomes a threat not only to the doctor, to the scientist himself, the people involved with him, the people surrounding him, but also to the world itself, to the humanity, thanks to the global reach of the World Wide Web, of the digital net. You have to check it out on your own.
There's no escape, ever.
I'm not sure whether it's noticeable from a distance, however, the picture quality in this DVD release of the first Lawnmower Man, it's disastrous. It's a disaster, it's a tragedy, it's painful to the eye, unfortunately. So I had high hopes for this release because it's with a DVD box, unlike this sleeve one, which was added to newspapers back in the day. And I was hoping for the best and I got the worst, unfortunately. Maybe not the worst treatment ever, but it's definitely way below the average set by standard DVDs. So like I said, the picture is a little bit blurred, a little bit murky, there is no detail, there is no filmic grain. So in terms of the picture quality itself, this is a piece of evidence which proves that DVD is definitely not enough, especially if it hasn't been well compressed, if it hasn't been remastered in any way. So this is definitely a strong argument against owning DVDs and purchasing them and moving on to Blu-rays, 4Ks, or even streaming platforms. Unfortunately, this one is a big disappointment, it's a letdown, and it's a no-no. However, after all, it's still the film that matters, isn't it?
From the mind of Stephen King to yours, Lawnmower Man, now on video cassette from New Line Home Video.
Whilst commenting on this film, I may be a little bit biased because I'm a big fan of science fiction, everything related to science, but on the other hand, to equalize the things, to make it equal, I'm not a big fan of horrors and slashers, in particular the latter. And this one, so it's an amalgam, a combination, a blend of both. So of course there's this very strong science fiction element about the science, the virtual reality, this world. As you can clearly see even right now, there is some early CGI involved and used throughout the picture, the film. And actually I like this retro vibe of it. So I have nothing against that it looks very vintage, very retro, very old. To me it's very charming on the other hand. So actually I'm a sucker for this kind of atmosphere and for those old special effects. So I have nothing against it. For me it's a plus.
Your naive idiocy makes me very angry.
However, this film, from a very interesting science fiction mystery, turns sooner or later into a slasher film. So mindless, brainless killing. There are some people falling victim to the main protagonist, the Lawnmower Man, and this is not my cup of tea. However, the title is pretty interesting also because in Polish, the loose translation from English into Polish would be the lawnmower of brains or minds. And actually in one of the scenes, so it is presented exactly in this way. So there is some pretty horrible CGI scene in which the lawnmower man enters the mind of his victim and he lawns the brain. Really, literally, it's shown like this CGI. Just a second, I've just found the moment, so here goes nothing. You see? That's what I've been talking about. So he literally mows the brain of his victim, the main character. But I don't want to spoil anything anymore, so let's stop it at this point.
Don't hurt me, please.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I have seen this film from the beginning to the end before, for example on the telly, so it hasn't been my first watching, and maybe that's why I have a soft spot, a weakness for it, a little bit. Of course I knew some basic facts, but I wanted to rewatch it, to come back to it, because I like science fiction and I've recently added it to my collection, this nice DVD edition, and the cover is also very appealing. So that's why I decided to check it out again, and I must say that, you know, when you think about it objectively, it's just not a good film. So it's the narrative, the plot is all over the place, a little bit of science fiction, some horror elements, this slasher thing and all that, and it like doesn't make that much of a sense. It's not very linear.
Cybo Man, he came to see me.
Cybo Man. Comics, right?
Yeah, Cybo.
It's not very consistent in its tone. However, on the flip side, so the acting is pretty good. We have Pierce Brosnan in a very interesting role as a scientist before his James Bond era, before his prime as James Bond, arguably. We have Jeff Fahey, who also sports a very nice silhouette at some point, so I was very surprised with that, because I don't think he's ever been known for being a very chunky, very well-built guy, so it's also chapeau bas to him that he prepared for this role. And the film is pretty well played, but it's kitschy, it's tacky, and also this is where the charm of this film lays in. Exactly this tackiness, this kitschiness, like even those dated CGI effects. So like I said, I'm a big fan of those, that retro style, retro climate. So to me, it's a big advantage of this film, especially the final bout, the final sequence, where they come to blows, but in the virtual space, virtual reality. You have to see it on your own. I'll just try to skip it to that moment, but I don't want to reveal too much of the plot. Not that it's very complicated, but still, you know, the more you are surprised, the less you know about it, probably the better, and the more captivating the potential screening would be, right?
Peter is here.
And this is what happens later on in the narrative, almost closer to the end of the film. As you can see, again, pretty funny CGI, but to me, this is my cup of tea. So, again, that's probably why I remember this film so fondly when I watched it, maybe in the late 1990s, because the film is from 1992. So, thanks to those dated CGI effects. Really, in my case, I find it to be an argument for watching, for revisiting this film, not against it. But this is just me, so I guess that to many people it may stick out like a sore thumb if you compare it to the new productions like the new Avatar or Marvel films and other ones of this sort. And there is also a very memorable scene at the end. Even though I saw it many years ago, I still remembered the ending, what was going on, thanks to its emotional charge, how moving it was, and that was very thrilling. Like a thrill ride, an emotional roller coaster, albeit thrown in at the end for a good measure.
Access denied. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied.
Just a fun fact is that Stephen King himself, the author, didn't want to have anything to do with this film, because also it was almost completely not related to his short story. That's why he sued the producers and they had to remove his name from the cover. But in this case, so this is the Polish edition, maybe they didn't care, maybe it was released earlier, but it still boasts his name, Stephen King. So it says that it's Stephen King's The Lawnmower Man, the Polish edition. However, like I said, so there was a lawsuit filed and they had to drop his surname from the marketing materials. Maybe it's for the better, because it was a little bit like false advertising after all. Because if you only base your film on the title of a short story, so probably it's not the best idea if you change everything else completely. Don't you think so?
You're not the Lawnmower Man. Wow, you've certainly changed. I don't know how you...
Another piece of trivia connected to the first one is that there was a sequel released a couple of years later. None of the original characters come back in this one, as far as I remember, and it stars even a different cast. So there is Matt Frewer, from the more recognizable names. He is the only recognizable name from the cast. And I remember that generally maybe it wasn't as bad as people make it out to be, because the average rating is 2.5. Oh, this one, it didn't fare much better with the critics at the time of its release, and even right now. So it has the rating of 5.3 on IMDb, but this one is a major drop down, 2.5. However, I remember that it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't the worst film I had ever seen. It was a little bit like Goonies, so I think that a bunch of kids were the protagonists. I need to rewatch it.
The adventure. Goonies.
But when I made sure that the score was so low, so I didn't decide to have a back-to-back screening. So after the first one, I decided to put it on the back burner, to wait with it a little bit more. But still, my general impression was that, yes, it was pretty bad. It wasn't on the same level, on a par with the previous one, which wasn't very good either. But there were some saving points. There was some redeeming value, if I remember correctly. So even that theme like from the Goonies. So all in all, I can't recommend you the sequel. However, the first one, so it's still pretty charming in its own right. As a blast from the past, as a walk down memory lane.
Give me access to all credit accounts.
The Lawnmower wasn't a very big budget production because it cost around $10 million to make. Of course, those $10 million back then, that money was worth much more than it is right now. However, it grossed around $32 million at the box office worldwide, so it's a pretty decent result. Probably also that's why they decided to follow it up with a sequel a couple of years later. And although the film has never been a critic's darling, now it has developed some form of a cult following amongst the viewers. And An interesting fact is that there is a director's cut which is around 15 minutes longer and is available on Blu-ray. So this is the theatrical cut, and many people claim that you shouldn't even bother with it if you compare it to the director's cut. So maybe there is some redeeming value in the extended version. Maybe it expands on the characters a little bit more, on the narrative. Because this one, so many people just claim that it's a train wreck, and I wouldn't be so harsh on the film because it has its pros, it has its advantages, like again this science fiction vibe, the virtual reality, which was at that time this uncharted, undiscovered territory, and now the presentation of this world seems pretty funny, pretty tacky, pretty kitschy. However, many people right now, they appreciate the Lawnmower Man much more than they did in the past, for better or worse.
This technology is meant to expand human communication, but you're not even human anymore!
That will be it for today's review. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have liked this short review, please give this video the thumbs up. Please share it with your friends. Comment on this review, on my take on the film itself, on the Lawnmower Man from 1992, on the unfortunate sequel, Beyond Cyberspace, maybe on Stephen King and his work, his books, himself as an author and as a director also. As we all know, he directed one film, Maximum Overdrive, and like he said himself, so he was coked out of his mind whilst filming that film.
Maximum King.
Maybe tomorrow will be our world again.
Maximum Overdrive.
Please subscribe to this channel if you are not subscribed yet, and I hope to see you guys next time. Take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you up later. Cheers! Because the thinking capabilities of the capabilities of the unclear. There is no detail, there is no filming, there is no detail.
Okay.